So context is king. A single note can mean anything. It's the context of the harmony behind it, the song structure, even the meaning of the song is gonna dictate how that note sounds. For example, if I'm just playing an E note, that can sound like a million different things based on what's behind it. You know, if I put it with an E chord, it sounds like a root note, very strong. Or if I put it with a C chord, C major, still strong, but much different flavor. Or what if I did that E note with a C sharp minor? Or that E note with an A minor. So you can see how all those different harmonies and chords underneath that note make a big difference. So that's why I'm a big fan of having a backing track or a backing harmony going when you're practicing. I think playing in context, what it'll do is it'll almost subconsciously train your brain to feel the notes. So that way, instead of just playing an E note, if you put an A minor backing track, you'll feel what a fifth sounds like. And then that note position in that pattern, and your brain will slowly start to put those two things together of what that pattern sounds like with a minor scale. So that way, if you're playing in a song, you're playing a solo and it's an A minor, you're not just going for where that position is in that pattern. You're going for what it sounds like in context of the A minor. And I think that's really the goal with music, is to be able to kind of harmonize with everybody and kind of amalgamate together to make one thing. I mean, that's the beauty of music. So I think when you have that backing track and you're running those scales, instead of it just being a finger exercise, it immediately becomes a music exercise, and it immediately becomes an ear training exercise where you're hearing those notes in the context of the overall harmony. And here's how you create an ambient backing track. So I got my volume rolled off all the way to 0. We're gonna do A minor, so I'm gonna hit the loop pedal once, and strum it, slowly roll up, and you can hear the tone swell in. And then I'm gonna bring it back down. When the sound is gone, I'm gonna hit it again. So now that first loop is gonna be what your time constraints are. To fill in the ambient sound, you can add a lot more layers to kind of make it a soupy, swelly type of vibe. So this is a good time to practice triads. We'll keep it simple with A minor. You could add A sus chords too, it could be cool, or other harmonic stuff, but a lot of times keeping it simple works really well. So I'm gonna hit the loop pedal again, and I'm gonna add layers and layers of A minor triads. And then I'm gonna end the loop. And now I have an ambient backing track. So here's the scale with the backing track. So immediately to me it sounds much different. There's music behind it. And as you practice that, this is A minor, so you could, in your head, start to think about chord tones and triads and arpeggios and intervals. So I know that's the third. So that's what that note sounds like in the context of A minor. So instead of thinking so hard about patterns, no, this is the fifth, you just kind of notice the fifth, and then you see how it feels. There's the root, against that ambient tone. So another thing to do is you put sometimes I'll do this if I don't feel like practicing, or I don't feel like being too heady about things or too structured. I'll just put on an ambient backing track and kind of play around. I hate the word noodle. I feel like it's not noodling. It's more like you're floating. You want to kind of float around. Another good thing about those ambient floats is, since it's so slow and doesn't really, it's not like you're hopping on a train and the song's going somewhere and there's a progression going by. It's just kind of there. It's like the ocean is just there. So it doesn't sound good to do, your standard licks. It takes you away from it takes you almost out of those, and it naturally puts you more towards creating melodies and just sounds. Another benefit of these ambient swells is that you can kind of isolate a certain interval and see how it sounds. So this is just all A minor triads in this ambient sound. And I think in the minor key, one of the most interesting intervals is the six. Whether you play the flat six or the natural six, it gives it a completely different vibe. I feel like it's almost like it's an inverted third, but you can still keep that minor third. Versus now you can really take a moment and you can almost start to play little different things. So you can start to feel the difference between those two. Start to kind of feel the difference between those two. And that's been something I've been trying to work on, is feel the difference between those two notes, and not just play, oh, it's Dorian, I'm gonna play the major six, or it's Aeolian, I'm gonna play the flat six. I want to kind of be able to feel those notes. With this swell, it also forces me to listen to the space, which is, I feel that's one of the harder things to do. Just holding that note. You really let those notes ring out and play the space. I feel like it's good practice for that as well. So get a loop pedal. Next time you're practicing any scales or specific notes, put on an ambient track, so that way you can feel it in context and get used to listening to something other than yourself.